welcome to episode 15 of The Leap Home. Good morning, Peoria!
In this week's episode, Sam leaps into a Peoria DJ the day before the city bans the playing of rock and roll music, persuading his station manager to lock themselves in the radio station and disobey the new law. Sam raises the stakes significantly. As feelings seem to develop between the two, he looks to keep the station on the air and his hand to himself. But can he do both? Or will the emotions of the day prove too strong?
Shit! Sorry, I'm fine. The door.
Doorknobs are usually placed a little lower, aren't they?
Good.
Stop it.
I wasn't going to do that. Last second decision.
Bad decision.
It was a bad decision, yeah. How are you?
I'm not too bad, Gerry. How are you?
I'm just trying to lower my doorknobs.
Yeah, it's always funny about sexual assault, isn't it?
Well, it was accidental.
Oh, so it was.
Accidental sexual assault is fine.
Good luck this week picking out clips that don't have copyrighted music on
Yeah,
them.
I couldn't fully do it. I'm hoping that the little fade outs are short enough to miss the censors.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. I thought it was quite a fun episode.
It was. On that, because of the clip situation where I'm picking out clips and considering the rights for YouTube, etc., I've been very aware of how much music the show actually uses.
It is one of the things that the show's known for, I think.
Is it?
Well, I think particularly when they didn't use the same music in reruns.
Yeah. I suppose it's one of the most obvious ways to put you in, to date an episode, to put you in the situation. You know, it's if you're in the 50s or 60s, the music of the time, yeah.
Absolutely.
I was also thinking as well, I'm just going off on a little tangent here, hope you don't mind.
Well, why it's not me that's paying to listen to this?
Because Sam leaps within his own lifetime.
Yeah.
The first season or two, it's easy enough to hit the sort of landmarks. You know, you've got Vietnam or Kennedy or the Beatles, rock and roll Elvis, all that type of thing. This show runs for how many episodes? 90 odd?
Yeah.
After a while.
Plus they're coming back.
Plus it's coming back.
That'll be a different timeline.
Yeah. But I'm thinking after a while, it's like, okay, you do a few, you can do maybe 3 or 4 in the 50s, 5 or 6 in the 60s.
Well, we complained about this last season, didn't we? There was quite a lot that were quite bunched.
Yeah.
I wonder whether they think of the year first or they think of the story and try and place it in a year, or if it's a little of each. Maybe.
Or maybe sometimes you think of an event, like they say the JFK
and
one, so we'll do one around that. But even the 80s is going to be, I'd imagine, a challenge for them, because when it was made, the 80s were present time effectively. So one of the things about watching it, especially now, but even back then, is like, oh, the 50s, look how things are different. You know, look how the attitudes have changed and the clothes and the fashion and the music. If you're doing it in the 80s when you basically just lived through the 80s, it's not as charming.
I mean, you say that, but Happy Days was very popular. It was done in the 70s about the 50s, wasn't it?
Yes, but so, I think we've discussed this before. I can't remember if it was on podcast or not, but the cultural, the societal difference between that 20 years between the 50s and the 80s is a huge chasm compared to just now and 20 years ago.
You think?
Oh, life changed. Between the 50s, yeah, that period, the 50s onwards, things change at such a rate. I'm talking about culturally.
Okay.
I mean, if you go back now, 20 years ago, it's not that much different.
It's all just technological changes.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, the internet was there. It's just a bit better now. But
mobile phones wouldn't really have them.
We sort of did 20 years ago. It's just a slightly advanced. But the attitudes haven't changed, I don't think, very much. I don't think there's been as much.
Oh, you think there's been a bit of polarisation in the last 20 years?
Oh, that's, if you're talking political, then that's always been a case as well. But maybe even more so back then. The people were perhaps more political.
This episode's a good example.
Yeah.
Of someone taking a hardline position.
I remember, this is one of the episodes that I do remember watching as a kid and thinking it was hilarious that, you know, rock and roll, which for me, I was a sort of rock fan back as a kid, heavy metal and all that type of stuff. And so this rock and roll, so...
it's not even edgy.
It's not edgy at all, yeah. It's, it's so cute and saccharine. And I'm thinking, how could people be offended? Obviously, I've got a bit more awareness of the the impact it did have. But yeah, it was one that stood out. I was outraged as well. I thought it was hilarious and outrageous that they could try and ban
some type of music.
Yeah, but not even, it wasn't punk. They weren't spitting at each other and squirting blood. It was...
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway.
I suppose if anybody wants to discuss these issues, they should be told how.
How would they do that then?
They would probably do it on social media. We've got accounts all over the place. We're at Leap Home Podcast on Twitter and on Instagram. We're at The Leap Home on Facebook. Website is theleaphome.com. And, as always, every episode is available 1 week early on the Columbo Podcast Productions YouTube channel, where you can like us and comment and subscribe and whatever else, set up alerts.
Snapchat.
Our entire back catalogue is now also available there.
Is it?
All our TV broadcasts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Exciting times.
Forevermore.
Well, until they get shut down.
Yeah. For not meeting minimum standard requirement.
Yeah. I was thinking about that YouTube gets shut down.
Well, I heard today, in America, they're rolling out YouTube podcasts.
That's interesting.
Not available here as yet, but
We'll have to look at see how that works.
we'll have to see how that works, but it might make it easier for people to listen via YouTube.
Well, maybe. That would be good.
Mm-hmm. Surprising it's taken them so long.
Yeah, I guess. Well, I suppose it's more of a video-focused platform, but yeah. One last thing, as well as subscribing on YouTube, if you could leave a review for us on your favourite podcast provider, ideally Apple Podcasts, where people congregate, and that would be very much appreciated.
Okay, done and dusted. We're a bit long this week.
Yeah, shall we take a look at things?
Let's crack on. We get the usual recap of the previous leap.
Sam's takeaway this week is that there's usually someone around to offer a helping hand or paw, although he generally has to end up doing the dirty work himself.
Now, I'm no expert, but he says here, he refers to them as companions. Is that maybe a nod to Doctor Who? Did Doctor Who refer to companions? Is that a thing?
It does, but I don't imagine this is a nod to it.
No, time travelling?
Yeah, his companions travelled with him.
Okay,
I would say Al's his companion in that context.
sure. Okay, I'll just ignore that.
That's okay. The start of the episode is slightly different from the way that it was tagged at the end of last week's episode.
Yeah.
A little bit more.
Yeah, we find ourselves at a radio station where Sam is blazing tutti frutti in a wacky-ish shirt before he gets flustered when his producer calls through to him as Chick and tells him to stop messing around and read the commercials.
Yeah, he realises that he's a DJ, fumbles some records and gives it the old oh boy.
Well, he catches a glimpse of himself and notices that he's a balding, or bald, I've noted here, a middle-aged man. Certainly not a youth.
No, he's not a young man. He's maybe a established DJ. He's got his own, as we've come to learn, a nickname and so on.
Sure. We then get the credits and we find out what the year, the date is.
Yeah, September the 9th, 1959, and Sam reads his ad unconvincingly.
Yeah, he stumbles through this for, I think it's an ice cream parlour, but has to then be reminded to play a record afterwards, and he does so, but the crooning number does not go down too well, and he is invited to speak with his producer.
Yes, he asks whether that's going to happen now, and she says no when Ike gets out of office, which allows him to figure out that it must be the 50s.
Ike being?
Eisenhower, President Eisenhower.
In the producer's booth, he enters as the other DJ, I think he's called Brian.
Yes.
Well, he leaves and remarks that he never thought he would see Howling Chick Hill play Pat Boone.
He says that, yeah, we're talking weird, and Sam says sometimes weird things do happen, which his boss agrees with.
The producer, that's the boss.
Yeah.
Her name is Rachel Porter. She is not amused and threatens him with the sack, which causes him to note to himself that some people just instantly rub him the wrong way.
Yeah, so he's going to rub her back.
Yeah, well, I hope not.
That's what he says.
Literally.
He's foreshadowing here. She asks if he knows why her father started this radio station.
Yeah, I think it's a rhetorical question.
Yes, but he fires back with a barb.
What's that?
He says probably as a tax dodge.
But she corrects him. It was because he loved the music, as does she.
As does Sam and as does Brian, so it's unanimous.
Well, I mean, if you don't love music, I suppose working in a radio
Stupid job to
station,
take, yeah.
isn't, yeah, unless it's a talk radio station.
Unless you're being ironic.
Yeah. She goes on to mention that she has been told that he never took anything seriously, but he insists he does.
That suggests they don't know each other very well.
I think he's new to the station.
I guess so.
He is the name, perhaps one of a name in the local radio world.
He's maybe been hired to boost audiences or something.
I would have thought so, yeah.
So she asks him to name 2 things that he takes seriously.
Quantum physics and time travel. I mean, that's again another example of him not playing to character as he should.
Well, I think he's trying to be funny, isn't he?
Well, yeah, you can maybe get away with it if she thinks he's just being sarcastic.
She says it's no wonder that Chick has had 12 jobs in 8 years.
He then apparently says the wrong thing by claiming she shouldn't get so wound up, as it's only a rock and roll.
She does look a bit perturbed and he's worried that he's about to be fired, but no.
No, she tells him his record is ending and he walks out to resolve this, or she walks out.
In the booth, Brian reckons that Chick's got the hots for Rachel.
Yeah, he has it bad for her and has been making goo-goo eyes at her ever since he arrived, but that he should forget it as she only has time for her work. So it's one of these stereotypes, isn't it? She's the female boss is like the man, she's got balls, she's not interested in anything, it's only about work, she can't have, it's not possible.
She needs to be softened.
Yeah.
At this point, Sam is concerned he's going to have to carry on a radio show with no preparation, but Brian comes to his aid by telling him he just needs to sign off and get out of the booth because it's his turn to take over.
But he's not sure how or what to sign off with until...
his sign off's rubbish.
As well, he sees some writing on the window which displays the station's frequency. Do you know what it is?
No, it was a WOP or something.
WOF 7:30 AM,
okay,
I believe. And his lack of snappy sign-off is seen as a sign of how much Rachel has affected him.
Certainly by Brian, anyway, who sees everything, apparently.
I've got a question about Brian, but we'll get to that later.
Really? You thought enough about Brian to have a question?
Well, no, one particular thing.
Okay. Out in the corridor, Sam is about to leave, but he catches the end of a conversation between Rachel and a local businessman called Fred. Yeah,
he is, I think he's got different businesses, but he's also a newspaper owner. And she is telling him that she will not stop playing rock and roll no matter how many editorials he publishes. Now, this is the first question. I don't want to be ageist.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it's again more of to do with the times, but she and Sam don't look like the age demographic who would be driving this new musical revolution. She is in her, looks like in her 30s, mid-30s, late 30s. Sam's balding and looks middle-aged. This type of new music comes through generally, not saying all the time, but generally this should be getting pushed through or pulled through by the youths of today.
I'm not sure, because if you look at the main BBC radio stations, the DJs are all a lot older than you think.
They are, and guys like John Peel were
for a long time.
And they were at the forefront.
A guy like Steve Wright's been doing it for, he's leaving now, but
but he's not
years.
Sure, but they're like, apart from Peel, who's a dodgy character, but he was known to give new bands their big break. However, guys like Steve Wright, and I don't listen to music radio. I've never been a fan. I don't understand the concept. That's another point. But I don't think they break new bands. They just play tunes.
They play what's popular. They're not going to stick to stuff from the 60s because that's when they came through.
Yeah, exactly. So but she's not just doing this.
I know she's advocating for rock and roll, but probably part of that is because she thinks that's what's going to make the station successful. It's not because she just loves rock and roll.
Okay, yes, okay. I have to. What I think. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying there. However, this shows that I think she does. I don't think there's not a scene of her saying, "Listen, this stuff's garbage," but the kids love it, and so we should play it from a commercial point of view. She seems to really be.
Where she seems to consider not playing it because it's not worth it.
Yeah, but I still think she's a fan of the music, and you can be, but it just seems a little bit odd that these two middle-aged people are the ones that are going to save rock and roll.
I'm not sure she's middle-aged, to be honest.
She is. Well, she's well into her 30s, and back then in the 50s that was middle-aged.
Okay.
Okay.
And
also she seems very conservatively dressed as well. She's not.
Oh, she's a businesswoman. She's got to get taken seriously against a world full of men. Anyway, Fred says that it's inappropriate to play this music, and her father would agree with him.
Oh, I think she says this is rubbish.
Yes, she says he's got no idea what her father would think, but he says he's not the only one who thinks that rock and roll is going to do things to the kids.
And this causes Sam to interrupt with a sneer at this notion.
Yes, but Rachel tells him to back off. Yeah,
stay out of it. Just as Al appears to remind him that a lot of people had the same fear back then. And this is a subject that throughout the last 100 years, if it's your computer games,
video games,
horror movies.
So this guy says, Fred says, it's about family values and the future of America, but Sam tells him it's just music. Did you like Al's outfit, by the way, when he showed up?
Remind me?
So he's got this silver jacket on, and then his shirt has got 2 buttons on each collar and a hole above the button so you can see his tie going around his neck.
He does have very interesting get-ups.
He does. Futuristic. That's
Well,
what we'll all be wearing in the 90s.
Yeah. Al calls Fred a dinosaur, and Sam can't help laughing out loud, which Fred assumes is at him. And when he turns and asks if he thinks what he said was funny, Sam starts to walk it back. But on this occasion, Rachel defends him.
Yep. But Sam still isn't quite getting the words out, ironically, isn't quite getting out what he wants to say as clearly as he would like. He's trying to explain that people could just listen to another station. But it takes him a good minute to get to that point.
Yeah, but I also think this is wrong. He says that if parents don't like what their kids are doing, it's up to them to stop them. But
Well, essentially, the parents will already have instilled such a good sense of right and wrong that no matter what music they listen to, the kids will still know what the right thing to do is.
But we know that's nonsense. I mean,
No, I think he's kind of taking the mickey out of this guy.
yeah. Ultimately, it doesn't cut any mustard with Fred, and he tells Rachel that he will be pulling all of his advertising from the station, and not only that, he's going to be using his influence to make sure that other businesses do the same.
And not only that, but he's going to propose a local ordinance that bans rock and roll music from being played in the city.
A little bit like Footloose.
Is it?
Yeah, not seen Footloose?
No.
Oh, Ian, really?
Sounds like a dancing movie.
It is. Well, yeah, that's a musical. He storms off, and a devastated Rachel asks a staring Sam what he is looking at, and he tells her that she handled it very well.
Yeah, she thanks him for that and says if he's late tomorrow, he's fired.
We head outside.
Ziggy explains that, or Al via Ziggy explains there's a 90% plus certainty that Sam has to save the radio station because in the original history, it closes in about a year and Rachel's life spirals.
And as they walk, Al spots a lovely Corvette, which they realise is Sam's, but on the windscreen, there is a warning.
Is that, it's been graffitied with an anti-rock and roll slogan. That's a bit ironic, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like, listen to rock and roll and the youths will all end up doing things like drugs and graffiti.
Yeah. So we're going to do some graffiti to... Yeah. Sam thinks that he might be up against it here. It's a bit like when a bit later on someone puts a brick through the window. Who's doing this?
People who don't want rock and roll is going to cause violence. Back to the station, I think it's the next day, and Rachel is impressed that he is in time and asks what he's going to play for his first record. Now, I don't know a massive amount about radio stations and music radio stations, but my understanding is that you've got effectively a set list. You've got you don't just off the cuff decide what to play, because you have to record all these things for music rights and what have you. Anyway.
He says he's going to play something by the Beatles, who do not yet exist.
He is an idiot. Only in the last episode he was aware of them making their debut, but you must know that in the 50s, you don't have to be a genius. You don't have to really be into music to know that, the Beatles were the 60s and rock and roll was...
59 at best, they're touring
No,
Germany.
They're not. Are they even at that point? I don't even think they are.
I don't think they've released any music for sure. So.
Yeah, I think they're not still the Quarrymen or whatever at that point, but they certainly, in 1959, they're not known.
No.
And they certainly wouldn't have records to play.
Yeah, he shouldn't be saying that. He knows it's the 50s. He knows anyway.
He's an idiot.
Yeah, Rachel's a bit confused by what he's saying, but thinks he maybe means the Crickets that play with Buddy Holly.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the influences. Not only Buddy Holly's a musician, but the band name was a bit of an influence.
Yeah.
He shows her out, and then Al appears, who advises him on what records are good or bad, which understandably disturbs Rachel, who is watching from her booth. So again...
Yeah, watching him talk to Al, but she never brings it up. Just must think he's a bit crazy.
I mean, can you not talk into his hand or something?
The other thing is, Al's trying to talk him through an intro and a style for this show. What have they been doing since he left work yesterday?
Yeah.
Why did Al not come to his house and help him?
Exactly. Explain what type of character he is, how he should be performing.
Yeah.
Give him some background.
You would think.
But no, Al was away probably pestering some...
Pervering somebody.
Yeah. So Sam's in a panic, especially after Al points out that it is not about playing music, but more about his personality and on-air patter. He starts to write some stuff down, but then Al reminds him of Good Morning Vietnam.
Good morning, Peoria! Ow! This is Howlin' Chick Howl. Coming to you live on WOF. Woof, 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 woof. Would you excuse me, folks, for just a second? Correct me if I'm wrong, but is there a dog in here? Excuse me, is there a dog? Would you get on my lap? Would you get sorry. My mistake, folks. That's our advertising manager. Would you let go of my leg? Would you let go like tish? And stay out. Great. Finally, a parking space for me. And speaking of space, how about those Russians, huh? Hey, I had a great idea. Instead of monkeys, why don't we stick old Khrushchev on the end of a satellite and throw him into orbit? I mean, how many Alfred Hitchcock lookalikes do we need anyway? Talk about your vertigo. Whoa! And don't look down! But enough chat, Ched. Let's put on a hit. Goodness gracious, it's Jerry Lee Lewis, Great Balls of Fire, which is probably what old Nikita Baby will be singing upon re-entry.
You shake my nerves and you rattle my...
Can I say something controversial here?
What are you going to say?
I really hate Robin Williams as a comic.
That's controversial.
He in movies he's good, some better than others, but that's an example there. I have always found his stand-up, people raved about him as some sort of genius, right? I've always found him obnoxious, irritating, and style over substance. Saying things really fast and jumping about and putting on silly voices all the time. Do you know what? See, for like 30 seconds, you go, yeah, but can you imagine being beside him all? You'd be like, shut up. Away you go, you're an irritant. It's like, it's just so draining, and I'm not saying it's not skillful and it's fast, but it's comedy. You'd be utterly bored with that after a minute or two. I do. I mean, everyone's got their own opinion, but
Lots of folk liked it.
yeah, they did. They're wrong, I mean, but lots of folk, like Nickelback, but I mean, it's shite.
This is really close to, it's too close to a direct lift from Good Morning Vietnam. Obviously, Sam taking advantage of the fact the movie's not out yet in 59.
Yeah.
But it's...
I don't blame Sam here. I mean, if this is the type of character...
Well, I like Good Morning Vietnam. This is too close to what they do.
Well, it's meant to be, but that's the point. He's copying it.
Yeah, it's not even just... It's almost like a direct lift.
Well, yeah, but it's like in a Good Night Sweetheart when Nicholas Lyndhurst, he's always like pretending he's invented lyrics to the Beatles and things like that, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, it's a good movie. You should watch Good Morning Vietnam.
No, I have watched it.
Everyone should. Very entertaining. Sad though.
Mm-hmm. Well, what would you mean? All those people have been murdered.
Yeah. There's a lot of people dying in it. Yeah.
At the end there, Sam sinks back into his chair, but is relieved to get a thumbs up from Brian and a look of astonishment from Rachel. Now, here's my question about Brian. Brian's another DJ.
Yeah.
Sam's just started his shift.
Yeah. Why is he there?
Why is he there? It's probably, I'd imagine they do sort of 4-hour shifts.
Yeah. Well, maybe he's just finished and he just hasn't gone yet.
No, maybe.
Yeah, we never see anybody else.
Sure. Yeah, okay, that might be an explanation. If he's not left,
yeah,
he certainly shouldn't be there to watch someone else. I mean, for a start, by definition, you can just listen to it on the radio.
Unless he produces Sam's show as well as presenting his own.
Possibly. Don't think so, however.
No, I don't think there's any production going on from outside the booth.
Nah.
Anyway, while this music plays, we see Fred outside disapproving of some dancing young people who are enjoying the music.
Yes, he doesn't like these youths.
With their happiness.
People are jiving in the street to the...
it seems unlikely.
I was going to ask, did people actually do this back in the 50s in America?
Would they be that excited about the music?
Exactly, where they would just break out and they dance because a bit of Jerry Lee Lewis. Now, don't get me wrong, that tune's a bit of a toe tapper, but yeah. I can't see myself suddenly... But again, things are different. It's so different from the... It's
maybe just a bit of cinematic license just to demonstrate that this is popular.
Yeah. Because if they actually did do that, I would be on Fred's side. I'd be thinking, I'm not having this. Enough of this garbage. This isn't a musical.
There's a great moment coming up here where Sam continues his bit.
Well, he's right in he's got this persona down now.
And he turned round and his hair miraculously dries.
Does it?
Because it's soaking wet up until this point. And he turned round, I think, to talk to Brian, and it's dry. Completely dry. And it stays dry for the rest of the episode.
Okay. Why was it wet?
He'd come out the shower, I think, or I don't know, he was running late. He was soaking wet when he came into the...
Okay. Yeah, he's now become a professional irritant, just like Williams on the radio.
And we find out that someone was immediately enraged by this gig because a brick comes flying through the window. Goes through Al and hits the decks.
It does, yeah. Although we should point out as well that I thought this was good. What he did was he invented an invisible character.
Yes.
So that he could talk to Al.
Yes.
Now, that's the type of genius level thinking that he should be doing every week. Do you know what? That should be one of his, like in the first few minutes. Every week we should see him inventing a way to be able to communicate with Al.
Like when he's on the phone that time, that was good.
Yeah, that's the obvious one. This one is really good.
Yeah. We get a brief exterior shot and then it's obviously a wee bit later Sam's working. For some reason the brick has hit the top of the decks, but he has to go underneath to fix them.
Yeah, it's a bit like, it reminded me very much of Star Trek. Oh, do you know what? I didn't tell you. Do you know where I was last night?
Were you on the Enterprise?
Almost.
Where were you?
I was at the cinema watching the director's cut remastered motion picture. Yeah.
Why would you pick that up?
I don't know. I wanted to get out of the house for a while.
4 hours?
No, it was only 2 hours 12.
Oh, okay. That's the one with all the spaceship porn on it?
Yes.
Did it look better in 4K?
It looked really good, yeah. I quite enjoyed it, although I think the cinema was empty and practically there was 3 old people sitting, just to the right of me.
Yeah.
And I must admit, after a while, I started getting a little bit bored and I was checking my phone and I accidentally scrolled down and there was an embedded Twitter link, and as I was scrolling my thumb, my phone was on silent, but I hit play on a Twitter video. And I fumbled in that way where you panic when you try to get it to stop, and it doesn't stop straight away because you've got fat thumbs, and they start scaling at me. But I beat them up.
Yeah, fair enough.
They were old.
That'll teach them.
Yeah, and just took their sweets from them.
They're trying to ban your rock and roll.
I mean, I totally understand. I hate that myself. I would be scaling at me.
Yeah.
And
the other annoying thing is young people.
In general.
Well, in general, but in the cinema.
Yeah.
Because they've no idea how to behave.
No, they're always on their phones.
They should have their own showings for youths.
Well, they do. That's why there's over 18 movies.
Yeah. But when they sneak into those, they're even worse.
Yeah.
Sitting at the back conspiratorially. Anyway, Rachel gets a chance here to reminisce about her dad building these decks and his dream to have the #1 radio station in the world, or at least Peoria.
Baby steps.
Yeah. Her dream was to have the #1 station in the universe, but she's going to settle for getting back on the air and is amazed to find that Sam has in fact fixed the decks and the hole that the brick made is gone.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But Al is more impressed by who he's just spotted in the building.
He's overly impressed.
I wouldn't say that overly impressed. I'd say quite understandably impressed.
I feel like they've managed to hire Chubby Checker for this episode and they're all too excited about it.
This was crazy as well, yeah. So he tells Sam to follow him out. So at reception, yeah, it's one of these things. This reminded me a little bit of when they had, what was her name in Columbo?
Fair enough.
And they all had to swoon over every single character. Like, whoa, even though she was like in her late 50s at the time and she was looking all right for her age, but if she wasn't famous, I think I've had this rant on the Columbo podcast. But everyone, obviously, because she was invited as a guest star, so they all had to pander to her ego.
So what you're trying to say is you don't find Chubby Checker attractive?
No, I'll tell you what I was really freaked out by here. In my mind, like, Chubby Checker was a guy, was like from the 50s.
Yeah.
Chubby Checker was only in his 30s or 40s here. Because he was a star, I think, when he was 17.
Yeah, so I've got trivia about this if you want me to do it now.
Go for it just now, because I thought, is that the real Chubby?
The real Chubby Checker at this point when they filmed it was 47.
47, right.
Playing himself at 17.
Sure, yeah, that's not really acceptable. However, but I'm thinking, 47, he's not that much older than me, quite a few years, but he's not that much older than me now, and I'm thinking...
He's now 80.
Yeah, but in my mind, I'm still thinking, I know this is a show from the late 80s, but he should have been an awful lot older than what he was.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, we're at reception. Chubby Checker's there, who for some reason Sam doesn't really know, and Sam mentions a twist. Again, that seems like that was for our benefit.
Yeah, well, Sam comes out and shakes his hand, but Chubby doesn't recognise Sam as Al starts dancing the twist, and then Sam does it, and then Chubby likes this, so he's going to take it on for his own act. This, again, mentioned before, this is like Marty McFly. This is now some white guy inventing the black cultural iconic. Or when Forrest Gump taught Elvis to dance. Well, that wasn't.
That's fine.
That wasn't appropriation, but still.
Yeah. But yeah, this is now White Man showing Chubby Checker how to dance, and yeah, I love it.
Chubby seems happy enough about it.
Yeah.
He's sitting up for this.
And on Al's insistence, he tells Rachel...
Yeah, if she wants to be the number one station, she needs to play this demo.
Yeah.
Which is obviously the twist. And then we get an extended dancing scene where everyone's just twisting away.
Yeah, including Rachel herself.
Yep, like you're doing now.
Shh.
Should we have an extended dancing scene with no talking?
But their parting is cut short when we cut to them leaving City Hall in disbelief that Fred has successfully had rock and roll band.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate. But Sam, after some accidental prompting from Al and Rachel, has an idea.
What's that?
Well, he grabs Rachel's arm and pulls her along, saying they're going to pull up the drawbridge.
Oh.
Meanwhile, some old guys are in an ice cream parlour looking very pleased. It's Fred and I think the mayor, the sheriff and Fred's wife.
Yeah, I think so. These old folk hanging about
It's safe to come here now that there's no rock and roll.
in the ice cream parlour. Yeah, Fred and his cronies are celebrating this, the fact that rock and roll has been told to stroll.
Oh yeah, there's some other guy. It's also a local businessman who is sucking up to Fred for the rest of the episode.
Little creep.
Yeah, I think we just call him Little Creep.
Back to the station.
Yeah, Rachel and Sam are barricading the front door.
As Al moans that it is a harebrained plan.
I like the fact they didn't bother inviting Brian.
Yeah. You don't need Brian.
No.
Sam takes his seat on air and announces the plan to his audience, which includes Fred and his gang in the diner.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon the City Council passed a law effective immediately that forbids the airplay of music known as rock and roll. Now, we here at WOF believe that is wrong. And accordingly, we intend to keep playing rock and roll until we can persuade them to change their minds. So with that in mind, here's a nitty-gritty little ditty that sums up in a mathematical...
It's only music.
That they're not allowed to play. In a hysterical way, what we're going to do. Coming to you live. Almost live. From the interstellar, out of the cellar, stand up and tell our rock group, Bill, Haley, and the Comets. Oh!
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock.
And then the Fonz walks in.
Or something like that. Yeah, the guys from Back to the Future.
A furious Fred is demanding that the local cop break down the door to get them off the air, even though his wife tries to make him see sense.
And the policemen in the mayor are also against that idea, but Fred has another one.
Fred is crazy.
Yeah.
Literally, and I think we'll see at the end that he effectively gets broken down, but he's a maniac.
Well, he's certainly got his ego tied to this law and his success. Anyway, they leave to follow up on this new idea that Fred has had, and a little time passes before Sam takes the time to read an article that Fred wrote in the newspaper recently.
Yeah, it is a statement by the man himself denigrating the type of people who listen to rock and roll, which he then contrasts by reading the First Amendment, which gives the right of freedom of the press and the freedom of speech.
Yes, he says that rock and roll is protected speech, and then puts another record on, at which point Fred phones in.
Yeah, he can't believe they're serious about this, but he's told that they are, totally, which doesn't go down too well with him.
Oh, he's furious. At this moment, Rachel and Sam take a little bit of time to ponder why Fred hates rock and roll so much.
Yeah, well, they're sitting back, I think they're relaxed, they're enjoying themselves to see that they've got the upper hand here, and I think, does she say that he just likes the attention?
I'm not sure.
I think that's what she claims, but I'm not sure I would buy that. It's quite clear that it's more than just attention seeking.
Yeah, no, he's just not really in touch with reality.
No. However, just then, the power goes out and Rachel tells him that there is a generator in the basement, but she's not sure if it works. And he grabs her as he tries to find the doorknob.
Yeah, and as we heard at the top of the show, he takes advantage of this to grope her.
Yes, he does.
Pervert.
Just as bad as Al.
Or worse, because he's
actually doing it, yeah. Al does looks, but he feels.
Indeed.
Out in the street.
I'm surprised she wasn't more upset, to be honest, given what happens later on.
Are you? Well, because what happens later on is that we find out that she would quite like it.
Yeah, but she's not convinced herself at this stage that she would like it.
No. Anyway, out in the street, there's a quick scene where Fred is strutting about, delighted with his work, and that he has apparently rid Peoria of rock and roll.
Okay, yeah, so Sam tries to start the generator down in the basement, but he needs help from Rachel before they can get it going together. And we cut back to outside where a group of young people cheer as the station comes back online.
Yeah, and this celebration from the Utes obviously does not please the incredulous Fred. I hope you know when I'm saying Utes, where that's from.
Oh, of course. Where's it from?
Really? My cousin Vinny?
Well, okay.
Okay. So we're back in the booth.
It's very warm there now because the generator can only power the radio gear or the air conditioning.
Yeah, and Sam, he's back on air and being annoying and a little racist, I think.
Was he? What did he say?
Can't remember, but I've noted that.
Okay. Rachel says that it's that warm that when they get out of there, she might let him buy her a drink.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're both quite hot and bothered, and I think there's an obvious sexual tension between them.
Well, certainly rising.
Which is interrupted by the phone.
Fred calls in again, threatening more advertising cancellations. I think, is this where one of his pals leans in and says, "It's true"? Little creepy guy.
It might be, yeah.
And Rachel, at Sam's prompting, says that she's going to call the national and state papers and she'll see him on the front page, and almost kisses Sam, whose face is right into hers.
Ah.
Don't know what he's doing that for.
Well, yeah, you do.
Yeah, because his morals change from week to week.
Yeah, whenever he fancies it. Down in the street.
Yeah, there's a van from Chicago rolls up. I'm not sure if it's the press or a broadcaster, but either way it upsets Fred.
Drop dead Fred. Right said Fred.
One of those.
Back in the booth, Rachel asks Sam why he is doing this. And he answers by trying to remember a poem from high school.
I think it ended with, "And everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity." I guess I just think it's time for the best to exhibit a little passionate intensity. And now it's your turn.
Well, I think it's partly because it's what my father would have done.
Sounds like he was a great guy.
Oh, he was. He had great plans for this place. He wanted to be the first to broadcast in stereo. Oh, and he always used to say, "The future of radio is FM, Rachel. FM." He was such a dreamer.
Oh, I'm not sure that's such a bad dream.
Check the record.
Oh, whoa. Yeah, well, over the last couple of minutes, you folks have been listening to something by Dull Needle and the Statics. A lot of people find it repetitive. I like to think of it as just plain old daring. Okay, for all you dancing machines out there who didn't rest, here's a little change of pace to help you catch your breath. No, it's a request that's just come in from me, and I'd like to dedicate it to the girl I'd most like to share a civil defense shelter with.
You've got to.
Sam goes back at this point to one of his tried and trusted moves that we saw in How the Test Was Won.
It's a slow dance and they finally kiss.
Yes, but that leads to Rachel pulling back and slapping him for taking advantage of her weak moment.
Maybe a bit unfair. I'm not sure.
It's an emotional situation, but I don't see how her judgment's been compromised.
No. Al appears and suggests it was more like love as Sam tries to rationalise the natural course the situation took, but she insists it was just rampaging hormones.
Al goes on with that sort of example you often hear about pulling the pigtails of the girl that you like. That's become a bit controversial recently. People say it normalises abuse, that women should expect to be treated badly by people that like them.
I don't think that's what they're saying. They're saying that's what kids do. We're not saying you should be doing that. Anyway,
people are people. You know, the wokerati, all those people, the left-wing loonies. Anyway, Al tries to offer some advice to Sam as to how to play this, but Sam's not listening.
Why not?
Because he's getting in there ahead of Al's schedule. The two of them resume kissing, and Al suggests a long playing record.
And Al, I think this makes Al feel quite uncomfortable, which is odd.
Yeah, he's normally quite pleased with this sort of stuff.
But again, we know he fancies Sam.
Yeah.
Jealous. But they have a problem.
Yeah, suddenly the dials show that they're not broadcasting.
Yeah, Fred has had the broadcast cable cut and they are permanently off the air.
Al outside notices what's happened, and as Sam realises that they're off the air, Al comes in and confirms why.
In the booth, sometime later, with the Utes outside shouting for rock and roll. Again, would you do that? I'm not really sure if it'd be that much of a
They're
problem.
maybe just showing support for the...
No, there's no
the
music.
live
Oh well,
video.
I'll just go and do something else. We'll have a malt shake and then we'll drive to Lookout Point where we will go to
Jump into the reservoir
third base in the back of the Chevy, or I don't know what they do
in America.
in America, yeah.
Rachel gives Sam another ticking off for his lewd behaviour.
Well, she suddenly flips actually and accuses Sam of, this is incredible, concocting the whole thing to get alone with her. Now that is that's quite the leap. That's a quantum leap.
Yeah.
What sort of conniving? Really, there's been the far easier ways to, if you wanted to try and fire into her, a lot more, efficient ways than this.
Yeah, he was working with her anyway.
Exactly.
Anyhow, Sam gives her a bit of a pep talk, which calms her down. Because, women just need to be calmed down in these situations.
And she slumps in a chair in tears. This seems to have been a momentary freak out as she listens to Sam, who tells her that she can fight City Hall.
The phone rings again, and it's Fred wondering when she's coming out now that he's defeated her.
But she tells him that she isn't, and they will be back on air one way or the other.
He threatens to talk to the sheriff, but gets a rather abrupt response from Rachel.
What did she say?
She says that he can tell the sheriff to take his nightstick and shove it up his ass. Well, it cuts away just before the last word, but it's well clear what she's saying.
Yeah, that was good.
Fred looks outraged as he stumbles away from the phone, and Sam has an idea.
Well, firstly, I think he's very impressed with her attitude here.
Yeah.
What's this other thought that he has? It's more in his
Wheelhouse, yeah.
wheelhouse, yeah.
He thinks about the gutters. I think the gutter press got mentioned, maybe.
Okay.
He thinks about the gutters are made of copper. You could use them to get them back on air.
It's like MacGyver.
Yep.
So up in the roof, the crowd down below are still chanting for rock and roll as Sam works upside down with Al beside him.
Al starts to glow and thinks he's going to leap.
Yes, but no, what is it?
He's just too close to this electric charge, so he should back off.
So Sam I think he's connecting leads to the gutter and the antenna. Doing something to get
He's connecting the power to the transmitter to the whatever. Down on the street, a journalist from one of the state level outlets is interviewing Fred about his campaign.
Yeah, he is telling him that he's taking his stance in the name of all that is good for America, but is shocked to hear Sam back on the air.
He's shocked and dismayed.
Of course. It's the next morning.
Yeah, I didn't get this bit. Scuffles break out between two groups of youths, and I don't understand who's on what side or what they're fighting about.
But one are the normal youths, and the other are the young Republicans or the young Tories types.
Who come to fight against rock and roll.
Yes.
They've just been bussed in from out of state.
Yes. Fred is not happy to see these scuffles between these young Republicans and the rock and roll fans, and the sheriff advises that the mayor rescind the law.
Yeah, Fred says nothing's being rescinded, and he says it's the sheriff's fault for not arresting Rachel in the first place.
But he sensibly tells him that arrests are the last thing they should be doing. I mean, everyone else, this is the thing, it's interesting that it wasn't portrayed as the attitude of everyone of the...
No, it's just an influential...
It's just this idiot.
Well, isn't it always the way the folk with the influence manage to get the power?
Yeah, no, sure, but I think a lot of the time there will be things that are scandalous. I think that generations, for example, the older generation, you might expect them. I mean, in this case, the cop, even his wife, are saying that it's fine. And I think normally how you would have played this is that, all these older fuddy-duddies would have been of that opinion. It had been them against the youths. So it was interesting that it was just this one man that they chose to...
Yeah. The sheriff... the mayor is in line with the sheriff. He's concerned about this press attention from the Nationals.
Again,
he's got re-election to fight for.
Exactly. He doesn't really have an opinion either way. He just wants to do what's best for his campaign.
He's like the sheriff in Jaws. He's banned rock and roll because he thinks it was the right thing to do. But it turns out it was the wrong thing to do. Yeah. Fred at this point breaks. He just cracks completely.
Yeah, he storms over to the door. He's going to handle this himself. The madman, he grabs an axe and he starts chopping at the station door, just like in The Wizard of Oz. I seem to mention The Wizard of Oz quite a lot.
Yeah, apparently there's a remake coming.
Yeah, it won't be good.
You never know.
I do know.
I mean, the original wasn't good.
Rich, what are we talking about?
It was pretty bad.
Every time I talk about this, it makes me feel as if I'm portraying myself as a friend of Dorothy. Anyway, but hey.
She's the villain in my eyes.
Is she? Okay.
Shows up in a new country and starts murdering people as soon as she gets there.
Yeah, she does.
Someone said that they're bad, so she's like, okay, we'll kill them then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, she's bad. Oh, I'll kill her.
Yeah.
Just got no basis for believing that these people are bad.
Anyway.
Ziggy and Al give Sam an idea, and he and Rachel move away from the inside of the door while Fred starts chopping at it with his axe, and Fred's wife begs him to stop.
And so, after receiving this information from Ziggy, Sam cuts the music and decides to make an announcement of his own.
I'd like to read you something we found in our news files dated August 16th, 1945. That's the day after the Japanese surrendered and World War II ended. The guns are silent now, and so are many of the men whose hands once held them. Never again will they see their wives or mothers. Never again will they hear their children laugh. And never again will they smell the sweet scents of home. And for what? For what did these husbands and fathers, these brothers and sons, give their lives so many thousands of miles from home? I say it was for one word, and that word is freedom. The freedom to pray, to write, to speak, to feel, to be, as we see fit and not as others would dictate to us. To this freedom, which has been so dearly bought for us, it is up to us, the living, to dedicate our lives and our futures to its eternal protection. These words were written by Frederick Beeman, the editor of the Peoria Dispatch. And I sincerely hope that Mr. Beeman would see it in his heart that all we're looking for here is a little freedom, too.
This is different. We fought for freedom. This is...
Come on, Fred. Let's go home.
We've seen this a few times. It's interesting that Fred didn't have his mind changed here. He tried to argue the point, but realised that he didn't have the backing or the support.
Yeah, everyone else had been turned.
Yeah.
Sam and Rachel now exit the station to a huge acclamation, and Al tells Sam that in the future it goes on to become the number one in Peoria, and Sam and Rachel get married and have lots of kids and are very happy. Not Sam, but Chick.
Yeah, I think when he hears this, he exclaims, "Married!" out loud.
Which Rachel asks, whether it's a proposal.
Yeah.
He says, let's start with breakfast. And she says, when you're finished your shift.
However, they kiss, and he does his signature howl.
Yes.
Before leaping
into a rabbi, where the old boy becomes an oy vey.
Yes. I think he's performing a bat mitzvah.
Yeah, it's like a female bar mitzvah.
I think so.
It's exciting.
And there we have it.
Definitely a fun episode.
It was a fun episode, and I think it might be one of the ones that is remembered by a lot of people. It stands out.
Surely Fred should have been arrested for taking an axe to the door of the radio station.
Yeah, well...
Is that not criminal damage?
It should be. I'm assuming here he's been taken, however, to a hospital. Maybe not back in the 50s, mind you, but today...
Be euthanised.
It'd be a case of him having effectively a mental breakdown here.
Yeah, get him sectioned.
Yeah. He's certainly have him assessed, because he's causing havoc with an axe.
Over some music.
Yeah, this isn't a stable person at this moment in time.
Yeah.
He needs looked at.
I've got a note here that Robin Williams is probably due royalties in this episode.
Due a punishment.
Or whoever wrote, the writer of Good Morning Vietnam was due.
I'm not sure if it was a Universal movie.
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway.
If it wasn't, then that's even more. Anyway. Any other thoughts before we get into the trivia?
No, I don't think so. I covered all the points that I wanted to raise, I think.
Okay. Well, it originally aired on the 8th of November 1989. Directed by Michael Zinberg, first of 9 quantum leaps for him.
There you go. Eh?
And I think he would go on to produce a further 40 odd. He's quite interesting. He also directed episodes of shows like Cheers, Lost, Fringe, The Good Wife, and Young Sheldon, amongst many others. So he's still going. He's now 78 years old.
Impressive.
Chris Rupenthal wrote the episodes, first of 10 for him. He also wrote episodes of The X-Files, The New Adventures of Superman, The Outer Limits, and where you recognise him from, of course, 4 episodes of Sledgehammer.
What ones?
Jagged Sledge, A Clockwork Hammer, Icebreaker, that's one with Adamant, and Suppose They Give a War in Sledge Game.
All good episodes. Well, they all are.
He's now 67 years old, teaches at UCLA. I think one of the other Quantum Leap podcasts interviewed him, so if you want to go and hear what he has to say about Quantum Leap, that's available. Patricia Richardson, a very familiar face, obviously.
Home Improvement.
Porter, yes, this was her only Quantum Leap, but yeah, probably best known for Home Improvement. She's got lots of Emmy nominations for that one. Also appeared as a recurring character in The West Wing. She's been in NCIS, been in The Blacklist. She's now 71 years old, still acting.
I think as well, I read that she is quite involved in activism, women's rights, and industry and things like that.
Probably after Sam groped her in this episode.
Yeah, I would say maybe working with Tim Allen.
Well, it could be that.
Wouldn't have helped her.
Do you like to think that Chick grew up to be Tim Allen's character in Home Improvement?
What do you think of Tim Allen?
I'm not a big fan of Tim Allen.
No, a lot of people aren't.
But then some people are outraged that he wasn't allowed to reprise his role in the new Lightyear movie.
Yeah, he's too old, isn't he?
He could have played, not to spoil it, but the older version at the end of the movie.
Yeah, I think he's just people don't like him.
Yeah, maybe. Richard Mackenzie played Fred Beeman. This was his only Quantum Leap episode. Also appeared in shows like All in the Family, Golden Girls, one of your favourites. Alf, MacGyver, which you mentioned earlier on. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I think he was one of the family.
He reminds me a little bit of Don Rickles, I think.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, he's now 92, but he's only got one screen credit since 1995, so I'm not sure how active he is. Todd Merrill, another interesting guy, played Brian. This was his only Quantum Leap, but he also showed up in 2 episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation. He was on 6 Feet Under, he was on ER, amongst other shows, and his last screen credit was 2004. We mentioned this already, but Chubby Checker played a younger version of himself. This was his only Quantum Leap, but he also played versions of himself on a number of other shows, including Murphy Brown, Ally McBeal, and Las Vegas, and he's now, like I said, 80 years old. Who was Leland? Was that the sheriff?
Was that not the creepy guy?
Maybe. So he's played by a guy called Steve Bean. I'm only mentioning him because he was on some interesting shows like Murder, She Wrote, Cheers, Married with Children, Charmed, Ray Donovan, before his death from nose cancer in 2019.
What?
At 58.
What? No. Nose. Wait, what?
Yeah, it's noted that it's a very rare form of...
I have never heard of anyone with nose cancer before.
Steve Bean died from it.
Oh, that's terrible. And I'm dread to think, the first step, you've got nose cancer. I mean, what do you do? You have to remove it, don't you? Before...
I don't know.
That'd be one of the first things.
I don't know.
That couldn't be. That
so he was 28 when they did this, so yes, that would make him the sleazy guy, the creepy guy, rather than the sheriff.
Yeah. There you go.
Barbara Perry played Fred's wife, her only Quantum Leap appearance, but in a career that ran from 1933 until 2017, she appeared in movies and shows including The Twilight Zone, The Andy Griffith Show, Bewitched, How I Met Your Mother, and died also in 2019 when she was 97.
Can't complain.
No, didn't have nose cancer.
Always a positive.
In terms of trivia, I've already mentioned that Chubby Checker was 47, playing himself at 17. Bit borderline.
Yeah.
The poem that Sam couldn't quite remember was The Second Coming by William Butler Yeats. And the last line that he quotes was actually only the end of the first verse.
Okay.
He only learned one verse.
I've got a little bit. Pat Boone, who was mentioned,
Yep.
was second only to Elvis in the charts around about that period. So he was a major star. But
Just
from the
wasn't rock and roll.
previous generation, yeah.
As I've referred to during the episode, the title's a reference to 1987's Good Morning Vietnam, so it was probably still a popular film at that time when they were making this. And yeah, Sam imitates.
Yeah, I'm
a
sure
lot of that.
as we're making this, it probably had just been released in VHS or Betamax or
Could
whatever,
be,
so it'd have been even huger.
Huger. Scott Bakula and Patricia Richardson previously worked together on a sitcom called Eisenhower and Lutz, and there's an Eisenhower reference that she makes to him at the start of this episode.
Wonder if that was deliberate.
Oh, well, maybe, yeah. In terms of things that we learned, so the one that stuck out to me was Al must see Sam's blue glow when he leaps, because that's why he thought he was leaping when he went blue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And probably Sam sees it or is aware of it as well, because he didn't seem surprised when Al mentioned
And
it.
well, Sam they can also see this Al's door.
Yeah.
So these sort of visual things are...
Yeah. Any other thoughts? Anything else that you learned?
No, I don't have anything.
Sam likes rock and roll.
Does he?
I don't know. Can we say that? I don't know.
No, I don't think he does.
Next week we have Thou Shalt Not, where Sam has to mend a family marriage. So we will see you in 1974.
Until then,
Cheerio.
bye bye.